Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Perdue, the infrastructure nerd. It's the October 2012 virtual user group meeting that we affectionately call the water cooler, and I've had too much coffee, 4 cups to be exact, but hey, it's windy outside and kind of cold, and it just felt right. Speaking of weather, hope we don't get knocked out by that Hurricane Sandy. Yes, too much coffee. It is that time of year. It is the time of year when it gets kind of bone-chilling cold, and even though I've had 4 cups, it still feels a little cold. We hear a little clicking in the lines. I don't know if you hear that, Leanne and I do, and I sincerely do hope that we don't get knocked out by Hurricane Sandy. And at the same time, I wish everybody else that may be listening to us and in that area, because we do have a couple customers that are outside our normal business area. We wish those people all the luck in the world as they weather this storm, and we will now weather the storm that we know as Platinum and ODBC, 2 topics that are kind of alike and not, and we put them together because they do kind of have a little bit of correlation. Mary Jo is going to talk about the differences between Platinum and the regular version of Tabs3 PracticeMaster, what we typically called the multi-user version. I'm going to talk about the differences between Platinum and Platinum SQL. They are small but not insignificant, so we'll try and add a little bit of insight into the differences there. And then I am going to go on and talk a little bit more about ODBC. Now this, a little bit of housekeeping, this is the control panel that you are probably looking at right now. Or that you've already learned how to minimize by clicking this button. This is your GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar control panel. You can get rid of this big box by clicking this little icon that looks like a couple arrows pointing to the right. That will shrink up this big box, but we'll still leave these icons here. You can raise your hand with this icon here, and if you're feeling a little bit more bold and want to actually ask a question live, this button will turn into arrows pointing to the left once it's shrunk down, and clicking it again will cause this to reappear where you can type a question here, hit enter or send, and that question will go through and Leanne will find it and she will interrupt me at an appropriate time, or Mary Jo at an appropriate time, and we will get your question answered. So whatever your question is, you can either raise your hand, and I got that backwards. Raise your hand if you're feeling bold and want to ask the question live. If you're feeling shy, type the question here and hit send, and we will get your question answered. And so without any further ado, I'm going to take you here and here, which is basically just tabs3.com, because I know that the easiest way to get to some of the stuff we're going to show you is to go to tabs3.com, click on pricing, go down to where it talks about Platinum, and click here. When you do that, you'll get to what we call the short list. There's some very short descriptions of what the Platinum features are, the ones that have pictures are the ones that they think are big, the ones that aren't quite so significant, I guess, are the ones without pictures. And then down here, we have something called the Platinum SQL white paper, which is another thing that we're going to be taking a look at. So, and also a regular Platinum white paper. So this is just, the regular Platinum white paper is just some more expanded descriptions of the things Mary Jo is going to talk about. The SQL white paper is some very detailed information on some of the things I'm going to talk about. And just to summarize, if we go to tabs3.com and click on pricing and then click on Platinum right here, you'll get to this where at the bottom you have access to these 2 white papers. Probably the easiest way to get there. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Mary Jo, who's going to tell you the differences between multi-user and Platinum.
Okay, everybody. I think Paul always gets these questions as well, but a lot of times we hear from our clients, well, what is the difference between what I have, multi-user, and Platinum, and do I need it? Is it something that we can benefit from? All of those things. So I'm going to walk through some of the features that are in Platinum that are not in multi-user, and then you can kind of look at that, look at the information that Paul gave you, and then you can make a determination whether that's something that you can benefit from. Personally, and I think Paul will agree that I think everybody can benefit from what's in Platinum, but we'll go through each one. First and foremost is Tabs3 Connect, and Paul and I have been talking a lot about that in the last few webinars. That is huge. Everybody loves the new interface for Tabs3 Connect, being able to connect from any tablet, computer, phone, whatever you have, to the system and enter your time, see your contacts, your calendar, all of those things on one screen. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all the features that it does because we do have other webinars we've done on that you can get to from our website and see all of the bells and whistles. But Tabs3 Connect is probably, right now with this new release of 16.2, probably the hottest thing that everybody wants. And that is only available in Platinum. So that is number one. Auto recovery. Auto recovery, you all know when you go into update statements or do some super exclusive task, it will pop up and tell you that you're going to want to make a backup because if this program is interrupted for any reason at all, you're in big trouble and you have to restore from a backup. I have several clients that have called me and they did not have a current backup, or they did not make nightly backups with their IT person for their server and were in trouble because we had to go back several months to get a copy of the software that we could restore from. With auto recovery in Platinum, you don't have to worry about that. You can, it will go ahead, and if you get interrupted, it will go back and restore from right before you started to do that particular procedure, whether it's updating statements or whatever the exclusive task was. So again, that is a huge feature there. And with that goes into the next one with hot backup. A lot of times people don't make those backups because everybody needs to be out of the system to make those backups. And who can do that in the middle of the day or whenever it is that you're working on statements or certain data file integrity checks or things like that? Who can bump everybody out of the system to do that? And with hot backup, you can make a backup anytime regardless of who's in the system, and you can do that at any point in time. And you also can schedule that. And I'm going to go into our system really quick and go over to system configuration, because I want to show you just briefly that you can set up these schedules for these hot backups. And let me get in here. So here's a scheduling procedure here. You can come in and you can add different days. You can say that you want it to come in and make a hot backup every day at noon and at midnight, or however many times a day you want to do that. You can do it Monday through Friday. You can do it Monday through Sunday, whatever you want, and have it automatically scheduled. So regardless of whether or not somebody else makes a backup, it will always make a backup at noon and midnight or whatever you choose. And so you can set up the schedule to have that happen. And then in the meantime, in between any of that, anybody can make a hot backup whenever they're going to do something exclusive or something big that's going to make a change and they want to have that backup without kicking everybody out. So another big feature that everybody loves on that. Another one is eNote. We get a lot of questions on that, and at first people go, oh, we'd never use that. We don't, we wouldn't want to communicate in between in the office through that. And then we start to show them what it can do, and then they say, well, wait a minute, yeah, I think we could do that. And Paul and I use this all the time to communicate with different events. He will create a calendar ticket for me to look at, and he will send me an eNote, and I will know or he can e-notify me and include that record so that I can see that record that he wants me to look at and what he wants me to do with it. And I can show you just really quick. I'm just in our test client with Scooby-Doo, and I have a journal note up. It could be a calendar entry. It could be whatever I want, but here's a journal note, and I want to e-notify Paul about something here. So it's over in my quick clicks over here, and I can hit e-notify, and it will create an e-note, and it also has a link to this journal record. So when he gets this e-note, he can open this journal record right from that e-note and see it and work on what I'm trying to tell him about. I can send it to anybody that is a user in the system. I can mark it urgent. As long as they have PracticeMaster open, this note will go to them immediately. If they don't have PracticeMaster open, it will still go to them, but they will get it as soon as they sign in. So this is a very good way to communicate inter-office. Not something you can send out to anybody externally, but within the office, it's a good way to pass things back and forth. And you don't have to attach a record. It could just be a quick note to call me or to do whatever you want to do. So this is a really big feature, too, that people, once they start to see all the things that they can do with it, really like it. So we'll get out of that. So that's eNotes. Accelerators. This is one of those things people talk about and they go, what does that mean? Well, accelerators, a lot of times when you do certain reports in tabs, they can be pretty slow. It might take you quite a long time to run a certain data set. And with accelerators, with Platinum, it can speed up that process up to 30 times faster than what you're running it now in multi-user. Now, if you're a small firm and you do just a little bit of data in your reports, and it's not that long to do it now, not a big deal. But when you're in a large firm or you have a lot of information that you're running through on these reports, these accelerators can really make a difference. So that's another big feature. The log off the user feature. This is a wonderful thing, especially if you're an administrator and have to do data file integrity checks or things that are exclusive and you need to get people out of the system. I'm going to go back into system configuration because I know if you need to re-index files or do something there, that's something that's exclusive. So I'm going to go in here, and let's say that I needed to re-index files. I make my backup. That's my hot backup screen, so I could say yes, and it would make a quick hot backup. I have all these people in the system, and it's telling me that I can't do what I need to do until they're out. Or maybe I have to go into file maintenance and add a field or change something, and I can't do it because all these people are in the system. But I know that most of them are at lunch, and they just left this open, and I need to get in here. I can click on the log off users, and I can tell them what I'm going to do. I can retype something else in here, and I can give a certain amount of time for them to actually log out on their own before it will automatically log them out. So if I'm not quite sure that Leanne is at lunch, I can set this for 2 minutes. It will send her a message saying, hey, Mary Jo wants to get in and do this particular task. Please sign out of PracticeMaster or Tabs or whatever I'm in. And it will give her that time frame to do it. And then if she doesn't log off in 2 minutes, it will automatically safely log her out of the system without creating any problems. And then I can go on and do what I need to do. So you can set this for as many minutes as you want. I can even set it for 0 if I don't want to give them time. I want them out right now. I can set it for 0 and just log them off. So it's a safe way to do that. Another thing, you might have people that have been in the system, they didn't sign out properly, and you need to get them out of there. You can do that. And you don't know where they are, how they're logged in. They could be in on a different machine that they're not normally in. This is a way that you can just get them out of there safely. So logging off users is a big one. You can also just notify users. You don't have to log them off. You can just notify them that you want to do this and send them a message that says, please sign out. And then if they don't, then you can log them off. So there's 2 things there that you could do. So that's logging them off. Next on the list, we have the Exchange connector. What that will do is if you are logged into, well, if you want to synchronize PracticeMaster in your calendars without having to worry about who's in or do it in real time, the Exchange connector will do that. If you're out on your smartphone and you put an entry in and you want to get it back into your PracticeMaster back at the office, you don't have to worry about whether your computer's on or whether you're signed in. With the Exchange connector, it will go ahead and handle that for you. Otherwise, you would have to have somebody in there to do that and sync your calendar and do all that. This does it automatically with the Exchange connector. There are some advanced reports that are only available with Platinum. There is a new Accounts Receivable by Timekeeper report, turning out to be pretty popular with everyone that has Platinum now. You can run that Accounts Receivable by working Timekeeper, but that is only available in Platinum. And there is also a detailed Accounts Receivable report, and you have the option to include detailed information for fees and costs for working Timekeepers as well. So that, again, is just available in Platinum. So these are all covered on the sheet that Paul showed you where to go, and there's that detailed information that he gave you on that report. Will he'll take us there. Thanks, Paul. It will go into all of these in more detail, and you can see it. And of course, Paul and I are always available if you want to ask us further questions on what it can do and all that. And I kind of went over it quickly, but are there any questions on the difference in multi-user and Platinum, some of the things that are available?
We don't have any questions at this time, Mary Jo.
Okay. All right,
Good
I'm going to turn it over to Paul.
Okay, thank you, Mary Jo. A couple things. The accelerators in version 15.2, I believe, started also working with filters. Maybe that was in 6. Did I say 15.2? 16.2, maybe it was in 16.1, but the accelerators now also work with filters, which is huge for people that are in PracticeMaster and trying to filter certain types of cases or cases for certain attorneys or things like that. And Mary Jo said up to 30 times faster. Actually, I've seen clients that have experienced 50-time increase in the speed of printing reports by going from regular Tabs3 to Platinum. So I tell people 30 to 50 times. Mary Jo is a little more conservative than I. She said up to 30 times, but even then, a report that takes 30 minutes all of a sudden taking 1, or a report that takes 60 minutes all of a sudden taking 2 minutes is very significant. Now, there is also something called Platinum SQL. And Platinum SQL is, well, it's more expensive than Platinum, and if you've gotten pricing from me, you know that Platinum is not an inexpensive upgrade, but we feel significantly worth it. That's my new phrase for the day, significantly worth it. But if you want to invest a little bit more money, and depending on the size of the firm, you could also get some really neat boosts from Platinum SQL. Now, the big thing about Platinum SQL is that you, and I'm going to talk nerd for a minute, so everybody plug your ears if you don't want to hear it. If you have a 64-bit operating system running on a 64-bit server, then you will be able to take advantage of lots more memory than you can with the 64-bit operating system running on a 32-bit operating system running on a 64-bit server. Now, what that means is that with Platinum SQL, if you have the right server, 64-bit operating system, 64-bit server, you can take advantage of a lot more memory on the server. So if you have that memory available, PracticeMaster, Tabs, the accounting software, they are going to run faster. Now, the largest install of PracticeMaster in the world is in Michigan. It's a little bit over, just over 300 users, and they put Platinum SQL into a server that I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, had 64 gigabytes of RAM in the server, and they saw things that were taking 4 seconds go down to taking 0.25 seconds. So it may not seem like a huge, you're saving 4 seconds. Well, in that firm where they were entering fees over and over and over and over again, or where they were creating certain types of records, the difference is huge. So if you want PracticeMaster and Tabs to run faster, the best way to do it is to get to Platinum SQL and put a good chunk of RAM into your server and to allocate its use, if you're using virtualized servers, to allocate it to that specific Tabs3 server, STI server, that you're running the software on. Now, another difference, Mary Jo talked about reports being accelerated, and she said 30 times faster. I said 30 to 50. That does not apply to ODBC calls. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you what ODBC is, but I'll just tell you right now that it's accessing your data externally from other programs like Excel or Access or Crystal Reports. Some other program that's ODBC compliant can look at your Tabs data and then report on it, which, again, we'll get into in a second. Those, even in Platinum, are not accelerated. That the Platinum version uses an older version of the ODBC drivers. The Platinum SQL version uses accelerated ODBC calls, meaning that those also are 30 to 50 times faster. So if you are using external data access through the ODBC drivers, Platinum SQL is going to make that much, much quicker. Now, there are a couple other differences. Those are the biggies. You can administer your Tabs data set through SQL console if you are using Platinum SQL. You do have slightly exaggerated and more advanced SQL call capability with the Platinum SQL. Again, this is nerd talk, but for those of you that are doing things in external data access, the set of commands that you have at your disposal are a bit more advanced in the Platinum SQL than they are in the standard Platinum or in the standard multi-user, both of which use the ODBC drivers. So if you have 32-bit server hardware or operating system, or you're using ODBC, and your access to the Tabs and PracticeMaster data through external sources is minimal, you can get by with Platinum. But if you do have a bigger server, a more advanced 64-bit server running a more advanced 64-bit operating system with more memory than you would have in the smaller configuration, or if you have a need for the accelerated use of data access, then Platinum SQL really makes sense. So if some of our clients are 25, 35, 45 attorneys, our largest client is 72 attorneys, those are installations where we are seeing a great move to Platinum SQL simply because it's going to provide a faster experience both from an external reporting capability and from a general all-around capability of data access, as long as we've got that extra server RAM and that we have allocated it for STI to be using as a caching server, caching RAM. I'll stop talking nerd now. Well, maybe I won't, because now I'm going to go into the ODBC drivers. What are the ODBC drivers? Well, the best way to show you is to show you. Let's say you have some need for some bit of information and you really don't have a way to get that information out of Tabs or PracticeMaster through the tools that you have available in the programs. Now, there are a lot of ways that we have clients using ODBC. I don't know if you've ever tried to see a payment that breaks down among multiple invoices and what invoices it applies to, but there really is no place in Tabs that you can go to see that. So that's an example of something we did for one of our clients in Indianapolis, is to write a very quick spreadsheet using the ODBC drivers that allows you to go get that data and to see, for this payment, here's the 4 invoices it broke down or spread out across, and here's how it broke down among those 4 invoices. Now, I'm going to give you just a slightly easier example to digest. I'm going to say we want a list of all our clients in Toledo. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I want to connect. Now, you don't need to remember this, so just follow along. Don't write anything down. Don't worry if you don't fully understand what I'm doing. Let's just go for concept here. We're going to connect through ODBC to the data. And what we end up with is a list of all the files. Don't worry about the fact that you don't understand what they are. If you need ODBC, we can help you understand these things. And I'm going to go to the CM client file, which I happen to know is the client file in PracticeMaster. And I'm going to pull the name of the clients, and the city. That's all I really want. And I'm going to go ahead, just for now, just so you can see. And there are all my clients with their city. Now, let's go a step further and do what I said I'd do. I'm going to close this. And I'm going to do the same thing. Need to open a new spreadsheet. These darn computers, they only do what you tell them to do. They don't know what you want to do, they just do what you tell them to do. And we're going to go to the same file, and we're going to do the same thing. This time we're going to pull client ID and name and city. And then we're going to go and say that we want the city to equal Toledo. Mary Jo, are you proud of me? I'm using the wizard. Mary Jo always chides me because I don't use the wizards. I go into a more complex way to do these things. I'm going to tell it to put the data there. And here's a list of all my clients in Toledo. Now that's very simple, okay? But if you look at tabs, for instance, in case you're curious and feeling nerdy, and go into help help topics and go to the index and type ODBC, which again, if you're feeling nerdy, stands for Open Database Connectivity, and get the data file list, you will see all the files that you have access, and this is just tabs. You'd have to go into PracticeMaster and each of the other programs to get their lists by going into Help, Index, ODBC, and then pulling up the data list. These are all the files you have access to. Let's say you want some detailed client ledger information. There's the ledger file. There are the fields that are in that file. I'm not going to go through this, but this is the data that you have access to. You basically have access to absolutely everything that's in Tabs, AP, GL, Trust, PracticeMaster. Those things are all exposed and ready to be accessed and worked on by an ODBC compliant program like Excel, like Microsoft Access, like Crystal Report Writer, or any other ODBC compliant program. Now, a couple caveats. It's only read. It's not write. So it's what we call a read-only ODBC connection, meaning you can look at the data and you can use it to do things, but other than that, you can't write back to the data files, obviously, because those changes are made through the programs. It is not a situation where you say, I want to take the cash receipts report and make this change and get it out to Excel, so I'm going to use the ODBC drivers. You do not start with a report. You do not say, I want to go into ODBC and load up the cash receipts report and make this change to it. You start from scratch. So it's not like taking a mix recipe of chocolate chip cookies and adding extra chocolate chips to it. It's like taking the recipe that was used to make the mix for the chocolate chip cookie recipe and starting from scratch, okay? You are not starting with an existing report and modifying it to meet your needs. You are starting from scratch. So it's not a matter of, hey, I have this complex report called the receipt allocation report that pulls from 8 different files and knows which clients have receipt allocation rules set up a certain way and tells me how that breaks down among those rules plus what's left over being divided among working timekeepers. That's our receipt allocation report in Tabs. You don't start with that. You start with the raw data, and you hook it together the right way, and you pull the fields, and you query the database the right way, and you get what you're looking for. Okay, so it's not for the faint of heart. Most people that we have using ODBC, they have either somebody that understands this stuff a little bit more than your average Tabs3 PracticeMaster user, or they have us do stuff for them, or they're getting some very simple information, like I just pulled a list of all my clients that are in Toledo. I could have gotten a little further and pulled out their address information, or maybe I have a field in PracticeMaster that tells me that they're interested in getting a holiday card or whatever, and I could have extracted the information that way based on those particular criteria. Okay, so do we have any questions for me, Leanne?
No questions, Paul.
Oh, I did a good job of explaining too. Okay, well, if you do have questions after the fact, you can always email paul.purdue, like the school, not the chicken, P-U-R-D-U-E, paul.purdue at attorneycomputersystems.com. And we will always take those questions that come in from people that have seen a virtual user group meeting or what we call the water cooler and have further questions and answer them without charging you any money and making sure that you do get those questions answered. Next month, join us. It's November, so our topic will be the end of the year, how to close out your year, some things you want to take into account when you're doing that. It's the same session that we have every year, usually in November, where we talk about all those year-end things that are going to be coming up as you get ready to close the year. So join us next month for that. And that will be at the regular time, the last Monday of the month. Be warned ahead of time that because of the way Christmas falls this year and New Year's falls, we will not be having our virtual user group on the last day of the month, the last Monday of the month in December. It'll actually be two weeks early, simply because of Christmas and New Year's. So with that, have a good day, and we will see you next month. Thanks, everyone.